A few new people. Hi, Sona, Pushpendra, Banu, Sudesh. Hello. Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Aniket.
Hi, Aniket.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, this is my first time to be with you guys, and I came to know about this club recently.
Okay.
So I was always looking for this, the single malt Scotch whiskey club here in India. Uh, but anyway, I got onto the right place. Glad to be with you guys.
Pleasure to have you, Pushpendra. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Manchu. Hi, Michael.
Hi. Hello, Mr. Pushpendra.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Guys, I don't have that nice T-shirt on, but next time maybe I'll have to pick your one from Bob.
Oh, we're going to have many occasions. Don't worry, Pushpendra. And we'll make sure that as soon as this lockdown situation is up, we'll make a noise about it for sure.
Yeah, we would love to have that.
Hey, man, good evening, Rahul here. How are
Hi,
you?
Rahul. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, great. Great
Thank
to
you.
be with you today.
Good to see you on. And
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Hemant.
Good evening. Good evening.
Krishna,
Yeah.
sir. Good evening,
We are-
Doctor.
Yeah.
Hi.
We are 20 people in before 7 p.m. So that's really enthusiasm for good whiskies.
And we will give it a couple of moments, and this is my usual pitch to whenever we're starting any e-sessions, especially saying that we never stick to time, especially the ending time. We have tried all sorts of ways. We tried to set an agenda, we have tried to do X, Y, and Z. Never works. So I'm just going to try to make another attempt towards that, but I'm not very confident. But all I want to request all of you is just sit back and relax. This is probably an e-session which I want people to relax. It's a whiskey that's going to make you relax. 6028 is all about defining a different character. So I'm hoping that you people have a drink, dram in your hand, hoping it's Paul John so that you can at least get the distillery character out, like I mentioned in my invite. But otherwise, any whiskey, if you have, just join us and have fun. This is all about that. We're not going to be too serious. It is an amateur club. Remember, guys, I am an amateur. So let's keep it that way. Don't be shy about asking any questions for sure. I see Guru joined, Anupam, Banu, Praful. Hi, Praful.
Hey. We just have to change our T-shirts. That's it.
Hi, everyone.
And Jagdish is already sniffing his We'll just give it a couple of minutes and then we will quickly kick off.
Hi, Guru. Hi, Guru. This is Pushpendra.
Hi, Pushpendra, sir. Good evening and nice to see you.
Same. Good to see you. We are connected on the Instagram.
Yes,
And
yes.
I saw you with somebody, It's lovely. Good to see you.
I'm actually at a station right now, and I was like, I have to do this. So yeah, I'm just chilling and just logged in from the hotel.
Okay. All right. We have 31 participants. Hemant, you want to give it a go?
I'm just going to give another 30 seconds, keeping the number of people who have applied. Okay, just to give you people a little bit of insight into this event. I think that we said that we're going to accommodate 25. And so that we'll be able to give time to everyone. And then Himanshu said that let's push it a little more, Hemant. And that little more ended up with 60 people right now. So, I'm just waiting. Maybe let's cross that 35 number and then we'll quickly start off.
Okay. All right.
So Himanshu, as usual, how we're going to do this is we're going to put everyone on mute.
Yeah. Yeah, Hemant.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was just a trial. So I think I'm going to mute all, and then you can come online.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys can hear me, right? All. Hi. You guys can hear
Yes.
me. Sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a tricky situation with so many people on the ground. I see Satyakam beaming his wide smile. He's also wearing a SMAC t-shirt. Thank you again. Kasturi, all in. I hear some nice corks coming off already on the call, so really fantastic. Let's give this a go, guys. I think so. We are in time, and let's save as much as time as possible. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and to whichever part of the world that you're joining from, thank you so much for being a part of this e-session. This is the first e-session from SMAC, the Single Malt Amateur Whiskey Club, and I hope that you enjoy it. I'm going to speak a little more about the reason why we have not had any e-sessions, e-tasting so far, and we'll come to that a little bit later. But I just want to introduce myself. My name is Hemant, and I am the founder of the club. I founded the club in 2011. Like Pushpendra mentioned a few minutes back, I think so one of the biggest reasons why I created this club is for like-minded people to come together and share the views about single malt whiskey. There was no such club, and most of the international websites or clubs that offered any kind of membership was largely outside India, and we didn't have anything in India. So that was the reason why I set up something like this.
Vishnu.
So Himanshu, just let's go on
Most
mute for
important man.
everyone. So,
Yeah.
I just mentioned it a couple of minutes back. I think so. One of the biggest reasons why I had amateur as a part of the club name is to ensure that every one of you and myself, we're constantly learning from the masters of the whiskey who create these wonderful experiences for us. And I guess there's no end to the knowledge that you can acquire in the subject specifically. It's like an art. So that's the reason why I kept doing, ensured amateur as a part of the name. And I hope that we will remain amateurs for a long time before we turn real, let's say, connoisseurs, as they say. But then please add your friends and family to the group as and when you can. The membership is free, so anyone across the globe can just register on our website and become members. What we do as a club, we help in whiskey launches for organizations such as Paul John, Amrit, we do that. And of course, Dalmore, Jura, and other brands are some of the things that we have done. We do master classes, we do whiskey tours, and we are the first Indian club. And this always gives me pride because this is something that I really, really relish, is we are the first whiskey club that actually managed to do a bespoke bottling. Not a great effort from outside India, but in India, Himanshu, Ashok, whoever that we have associated ourselves with in terms of bringing a bespoke bottle exclusively for the club will tell you it is a nightmare. But then we were able to do that, and thank you so much for your support. Every time that we have bought out a bespoke bottle, it has sold out, and this time we are here to talk about Cask 6028, right? Before getting into the actual bottle, and I'm hoping some of you on the call today have the bottle. We're just going to do a display of the bottle in a minute or so. But our association with Paul John has been from way back in 2014. I guess in 2014, when I visited Michael at his distillery, it was a complete different picture to what it is now. And people who have not visited the Paul John distillery, I must tell you, saying that it is a tourist attraction by itself. You need to go to that place to experience what I'm talking about. Fantastic experience, great visitor center. Of course, hospitality is, unparalleled when it comes to Paul John. So it's a great experience. You need to go there to experience it yourself. But I started this journey in 2014, and I had been following the releases on Paul John. Michael and Himanshu, when did Paul John actually started bottling single malt whiskeys? I think so. It's 2012, 2011, something around that time. Your single casks I'm talking about. I mean, when the cask numbers were 400, 300, and things like that.
Well, Michael, take it on from here.
Well, it was in 2012.
2012. Okay.
Well, yeah. We launched, initially we launched 3 single casks.
Okay.
This was in the UK. Yeah, that was the 3 fast expressions.
Yeah, so I've been very closely following them, and I think so the initial cask, single cask that Paul John came up with, I think so I still have some of those bottles somewhere stashed away for good times, some 7 series or something like that. Right now we're at 6,000 casks, I think, going by the serial number on our exclusive, but they started way back then. So for people who didn't know about Paul John started in 2012, but in India, I think so we started, Paul John started bottling the flagship editions, I think so in 2016, Himanshu, is that right? 2015, 16?
We launched in Goa in 2013
Okay,
and in Bangalore, Karnataka, 2015, late 2015.
right. So our association has been from back then, so it's not new, and we've been trying to get this in place for our members for a long time. We have done a few sessions for Brilliance and edited when it has been launched, and of course we shouldn't forget about the latest launch, Game Changer. I call that drink in terms of Nirvana, in terms of the entry-level single malt from Paul John. Just a few key points. We were the first club to visit the visitor center from Paul John in January 2019. This was the time that the seed was put in for the single cask whiskey. We were following up on an Amrut release that we had for our club, and we aimed for this whiskey to, you know, come out, let's say, in the winters. But as they say, things happen for the right cause. I think the monsoon, the onset of monsoon is a fantastic experience only for people in India who will recognize that onset of monsoon. And a peated whiskey, especially on during a rainy evening. I'll probably towards the end of the session, we'll talk to Jagdish, who had posted some of his views about this whiskey when he tasted on such a day. But yes, this was, I think so, made for this time. The monsoon's coming on, and peated whiskey, fantastic experience when we go into virtual tasting of the same. The Cask 6028 was shortlisted during that tour. We had a few members who came on with us. We went as a group. We selected this whiskey. I wanted to actually bring some character of peated whiskey to the group. So what we wanted to do is, normally in India, peated whiskey is referred to as, you know, phenolic and deep. Either it's Ardbeg, Laphroaig, and the more, you know, phenolic peated whiskeys that are popular, not the, you know, light peat and, you know, elegant peat, as you may call it. None of those. And either you have with peat, you have either you love it or you hate it experience. But I believe it can be different. You can actually experience peat in a different way, and that's the reason why I selected, you know, the intent was very clear that we're going to do a peated whiskey, and that's how 6028 came into existence. Right. So quickly, why we don't do virtual tasting so often? I get this question a lot, and I need to address this before moving on with the session, why we don't do virtual tastings too often. And as a club, I think so some of the principles that we actually believe in, everyone needs to have the experience in the same fashion that we actually conceive it to be. And it would be extremely difficult, I believe, in India for getting the bottles across, the same kind of whiskey across to everyone. So it's a difficult activity to do in India. And I wouldn't want too many people on the session to actually have another drink, or maybe not even have a drink with them when we are doing a virtual tasting session. Virtual tasting session actually should be able to at least give 30%, 40% of the experience in person. And that's the reason why we have been going slow. And as I started the call, I said that, you know, one of the key things is, please enjoy yourself in this session. Do not be under the pressure of listening to expert. I am no expert for sure. Michael, of course, he is a master distiller, master blender, and he is an expert. But we can hear them, but it's very key to enjoy yourself in this session. Right? So I like I mentioned a couple of minutes back, I think the experience of going to the Paul John distillery is completely a virtual experience will not do it justice. I can tell you that at the onset. It's not going to do it justice. But I think so Himanshu and team have put together a wonderful video, and we'll go through that video now. Himanshu, and Himanshu, take us through the wonderful visitor center and the distillery, and let's see how it goes from there. Over to you, Himanshu.
Super. Thanks, Hemant. I'm going to mute all for the sake of convenience. Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Over the years, new age whiskies have been some of the best in the world, and today, Indian single malts have a special place at the top. The Paul John single malts have proved their worth with over 200 acclaimed awards in just 6 years. Today, we would like to share our story with you. It all begins with the 6-row barley, sourced from across the vast lands of Rajasthan to the foothills of Himalayas. Our whiskey owes much of its distinctive characteristic to this husky barley, which is soaked in water for germination. Later, the grain is carefully dried in the kiln to halt the germination. Peat can be added to the kiln for this special smokiness. Now the barley is called malted barley, which is then ground to fine grist. Naturally sourced hot water is added to the grist, converting the starch in the grain to sugars. This sweet liquid is called wort. Once the wort cools, yeast is added and the fermentation begins. The yeast converts the sugars in the wort to alcohol, and thus the wash is made. The wash then goes into the wash still to be heated. The vapor that arises sweep through the line arm into the condenser, and the resulting liquid, called low wines, are then distilled once more in the spirit still. The liquid that finally results is a run through a spirit safe and is called new make spirit. Pot stills are exclusively designed with long copper swan necks and line arms that ensure the contact of the spirit with the copper is prolonged for richer, elegant flavors. The new make spirit is then matured for a minimum of 3 years in oak casks, usually American oak, till ready to be bottled and savored. Created by the sunny coast of Goa, Paul John single malts are unique in character, with intense flavors, delectable aromas, and the tropical ambience of Goa, adding to its richness. Paul John single malts have 3 flagship expressions, 2 select casks, and an occasional limited edition. We believe we have been able to capture the diverse vibrancies of India in our single malts. Discover Paul John single malts and experience the true spirit of India.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, I think so. That was a wonderful video, Himanshu. Thank you. And every time I see those beautiful stills, I mean, as I said, you guys do a fantastic job in terms of your videography and photography. I must say, the stills pictures that actually comes through, it really. But nothing beats being with Michael at the distillery center and actually looking at the stills in close-up contact. I mean, there's nothing to beat that experience. And Himanshu, I'm not sure, I didn't speak about it, but do you have your visitor center video available with you so that you can play that as well quickly?
Of course.
Yeah,
Quickly.
let's
Let me
give it a
that.
go for people who may not have visited the visitor center.
Okay, let's do that. Just give me a second.
Himanshu has got a bouquet of videos available.
I'm just looking. In fact, I could get the ones where you were there. You had come and visited us.
Sure, anything. The reason why I wanted to actually showcase that video was for people to actually get a flavor of the visitor center. I think so. That's it.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just a quick glimpse of
That's
the.
a quick glimpse. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
keep the suspense on Himanshu. Let people visit the place. Let Michael entertain us a little more so that we'll be able to enjoy ourselves at the distillery when we can, when the COVID situation moves on. But again, thank you so much for that. I think so. It's a wonderful experience at that. I think that from now on, I'm going to talk a little bit of this whiskey now, and people who have this whiskey and who have seen this bottle, I think so we can see it next to more than a few people. I see Himanshu, I see Michael, and more than a few people having this box. This is Paul
Come on,
John's.
guys, show your box. Show your bottle or the box.
Yeah, we'll take a screenshot of it. I think so that'll be a good experience of it. Yeah, but I see some people showing up their samples as well. Thank you so much for people who made that happen to ensure that samples reach the relevant places. Yeah. Something about this, we spoke about this whiskey briefly. 6028, the cask. This is Paul John's first single cask in India. It's a peated whiskey. And when I say peated whiskey, it's elegant peat, it's upper peat. I think so. It's a great way to start the journey into peat, especially for people who have been unable to, actually appreciate peat. I think so. It's sometimes the aggressive peat might actually put you off to a certain extent. So I think so. This whiskey is something that will actually help you start appreciating peat if you ever get a flavor to it. Of course, there are a lot of different taste buds across everyone. Everyone's preferences are different, but then I think that this is a great start onto that, right? I think so. One thing that I really need to talk about, and Himanshu, I can't tell you how many people have called me and told me saying that the packaging is exquisite. Now, I believe that the whiskey inside it is always very important, but I think that the entire experience of the bottle, the packaging, and the way that it has been presented, it's unbelievable. The number of people who have called us and told us saying that this is something beyond what we have experienced. We have seen blue labels previously, but nothing like this that has actually come and hit us. And it is absolutely affordable. I think so. People have given that feedback very, very clearly to us, saying that brilliantly done. And for those people who actually don't know, one of the secrets of this bottle and what Himanshu has ensured for us is the wonderful Mario Miranda's caricature inside the bottle label. Now, you need to have the bottle, of course, and if you go through some of the contents of the bottle, the picture actually starts revealing itself, and once you go through the entire bottle behind the label, you will see a wonderful picture actually reflecting a lot of Goa in that picture. So whenever you people actually go through that, please ensure that you give a look to the picture. I think so. That's a wonderfully done gesture. Now, I'm not going to spend too much more time because we are already 20 minutes into the call. I think it's time to taste this whiskey. And I'm going to hand it over to Michael to do the honors in terms of taking us through the tasting of the whiskey. And we're going to come to all of you who have the whiskey so that we can hear from your views as well. Over to you, Michael. And I'm going to pop this bottle open so that we're going to have one thing that I would request all of you before Michael takes over is please use 2 glasses if possible. And I did this experiment yesterday, and I think it's very important. It's a whiskey that doesn't reveal the complete true picture in short time. So if you have 2 glasses in front of you, pour 2 small drams into each one that you're going to do for tasting right now, and the second, just keep it aside for some time, and you'll see what I mean. All right, over to you, Michael. Thank you. Unmute yourself, Michael. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Always I tell people not to compare whiskeys. So today, let me give you a background of the production process that we have here. You know that we produce close to 1.2 million liters annually. Out of 1.2 million liters, 40% is peated whiskey. We don't have peat here. We import peat from Scotland. We all know that. Also, we source our peat from 2 different regions. Some from Ireland, some from the mainland. You know, when it comes to peated barley process, we prefer to do it during the winter because, you know, the peat has phenols, you know. It is better once you harvest, if you use or if you start burning the peat as soon as possible, you know, if you burn it immediately, you get intense flavors. This is one of the reasons most of the Scotch whiskies, especially Islay whiskies, get that intensity. But unfortunately, to get the peat into India, it takes a lot of time. It takes almost 3 months. And also it has to go through stringent scrutiny and regulations wherein Indian authorities normally ask us to fumigate the peat, which we try to avoid because any chemical that you use that, you know, indirectly impacts the alcobave. So it goes into quarantine, and you know, as it rests in the container, at the same time it tends to lose its intensity. This is one of the reasons we process our peated malt during winter where the weather is cold. Coming back to the peat, you all know that Islay peat is different. The Highland peat is different. Islay peat is more of a you know, maritime character. It's got a lot of sea salt and seaweed aroma. It is very intense. It is medicinal. It is sharp compared to Aberdeen or Highland peat. Highland peat is more of a earthy character because, you know, on the peat bog only one vegetation that grows is the heather. You know, it gives more of a vegetation or the earthy flavor. Some of the expressions I use both the peats when it comes to process. I distill and measure Islay and Aberdeen peat separately. Only during the blending process, I mix these two. So we have 3 main peated expressions, that is edited with a hint of peat, bold, completely peated, but 46%. The last one is select cask peated, bottled at 55%. Bold is always made with Islay peat. Edited is a mix of Islay and Aberdeen peat. And again, select cask peated is with the mix of both the peats. So again, today we have 6028. This is one of the special single cask that was selected by Hemant. Measured in ex-bourbon casks, first filled, underground cellar. This is bottled at 50% for some reason because I think in Karnataka you're not allowed to sell alcohol which is bottled above 50%. Is it right,
yes.
Hemant?
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
only Goa is it's 60%, Michael. The generous state.
So ex-bourbon, again, on the nose, if you see, the first whiff is completely, it has got hallmark of Paul John because on the nose, high on malt, lot of, you have the barley sugar because we use 6-row Indian grain. if you compare with Turo grain, Indian grain contains higher amount of husk. This in a way helps us to retain the high amount of phenols, because when once it is steeped, you know, it is taken out and spread over the malting floor to dry the grain. Once the moisture content reaches 25%, we start burning peat. So the husk is the one which absorbs a lot of peat. So since Indian grain contains higher amount of grain, it tends to absorb a lot of smokiness. So similarly, if you use two-row grain, I mean, in India, we also use two-row grains. If you use two-row grain, you will not get this intensity. So this is one of the reasons, I mean, of course, we don't use two-row grain, but other guys, they use two-row grain. If you use two-row grain in India and you do the peating, you don't get this intensity. So on the nose, typical Paul John hallmark, you have a lot of, it's huge on honey and tropical fruity notes. It is citrusy. You have lemon zest, elegant tropical fruity notes. You have apple, green apple, pears.
I see quite a bit of chat coming up, and yeah, we'll get to that views. I think so. Well, fantastic. I think that yes, Sharad, you're not very far off the mark. A lot of us, like how Michael is describing, a lot of citrus, a lot of fruits, and that's really, really good to come from actual peated whiskey as such. There is smoke, there is peat in the background, but there's a lot of citrus and honey and other things that Michael is speaking about.
Yeah, it's because this is measured in ex-bourbon cask. Ex-bourbon cask is American oak. American oak imparts certain flavors. So it's very important for us to understand. When you taste whiskey, it is very important to understand the ingredient, the way in which the manufacturing is done, and finally, in which the whiskey is matured, I mean the cask. So if you understand these three, you know, it becomes more interesting. First is you get the flavor of the ingredient, then you have the flavors coming through mashing, fermentation, and distillation, because you know every distillery has their own way of manufacturing, and also the profile changes because the way in which you ferment the mash, then ultimately you distill in traditionally designed copper pot stills. So our design is mainly to give you more of a elegant, fruity, easy drinkable dram. So you get the elegancy from the copper pot stills because our line arm is high ascent. You get lighter vapors going through inside the condenser, then you get lighter dram. And again, it is matured in ex-bourbon cask. Talking about ex-bourbon cask, it is 3-level charring. It imparts a lot of vanilla, coconut, citrus, almond, then tropical fruity notes. And depending on the age, it will start imparting the robust characters or flavors such as chocolate and woodier notes. This is 5-year-old whiskey from the underground cellar. It's very elegant. On the palate again, it's very, very sweet. It is creamy. You get the creaminess because of two reasons. One is this whiskey is non-chill filtered, bottled at 50%. The second one is we have used 6-row grain. In 6-row grain, you tend to get more protein. If you compare with 2 grain, Indian grain has higher amount of protein and less amount of carbohydrate. This is just opposite to the 2-row grain. So because of the protein, you tend to generate or develop more fatty acids during the fermentation process. And also our fermentation process happens in a different manner. Our fermentation normally happens at little higher temperature, end of the fermentation, we cut off the cut off the chilling, so the temperature goes up. So at this moment, secondary fermentation will start. Certain bacteria takes over the fermented wash to make it more mellow and buttery in character. So on the palate, you feel the creaminess. Again, on the nose, the peatiness is very subtle, but on the palate, it is huge. You get the smoke, you get the flavors such as tobacco, dry leaf, leather, smoked bacon, and also it is herbaceous. If you see on the palate, you get the vegetal aroma, because since the Indian grain contains high amount of husk also contains something called tannins. The tannins, over a period of time, it mellows down. It also becomes sweeter, and when it matures, it also imparts the vegetal aroma. It becomes more herbaceous.
Michael, can you talk more about the peat? Which peat we have used?
Okay. When it comes to 6028, it is Aberdeen peat. Yeah, it's more mellower. I think this is the one you chose.
Yep.
I had shown you. I'd given you a couple of samples.
More than a couple, if I remember. But yes, thankfully, I think that we chose the best of the lot. I'm really thrilled to see, is that Tuhinanshu, who said that is getting a little bit of sea salt. Remember, Michael, this is one of our things that when we came to Michael saying that this is the kind of cask that I'm looking for, I wanted a little bit of a rim of salt on that whiskey. I don't know how many of you enjoy that experience, but I think that a little bit, that tinge of salt on the whiskey always is fantastic.
True. I mean, Goa has got a tropical climate. I think all the Paul John, if you see, it is minerally in character. Salt is there in all our expressions. When it comes to peated whiskey, it tend to be more, because peat contains some amount of salt. Also, saltiness. Too much of saltiness makes your palate dry. So much of saltiness is also bad. So it has to be balanced. This is why even most of these Isla whiskeys, if you taste, you feel dry because of too much saltiness.
One of the things that I really need to add on to what Michael has just said right now is, I think so this is a whiskey that grows on you guys, all right? Why I wanted to actually, give you this a bit of a tip, this is not an expert opinion, but this is a tip, is this whiskey is not the one like a sherry bomb, which will probably give you a wonderful nose, which as soon as you nose the whiskey, you're going to say that, oh man, this is something that you really look forward to and things like that. This has got a wonderful nose in terms of an elegant whiskey, like what Michael has been talking about, a lot of promise of citrus, fruit, sweetiness, and things like that. Very few people, and sometimes people can't pick up peat at all in the whiskey when they nose it. That's the kind of whiskey it is. But I think so one of the most important things is that this whiskey will grow on you. This whiskey is extremely one of those whiskey that is very satisfying. I mean, it's not because I chose the cask, but I can tell you saying that if you spend some time with this whiskey, it's extremely satisfying. It's very easy to drink. It's not that kind of a peated whiskey that'll leave you high and dry. No, it's very elegant. It's got a lot of sweets in them. It's got wonderful rim of salt. And of course, it's got that experience of peat coming through. And I, saw some time back, some people were getting some fruits, an extremely long finish. We'll go to some of you to take your opinions about this whiskey. And Michael, is there anything else that you want to add about what you described this whiskey?
Basically, Hemant, as a whiskey drinker, you have to understand that there is nothing called good or bad whiskeys. Every every whiskey is different. Yeah, forget about comparing the distilleries. Now we have got close to 20,000 casks today, and if you taste 20,000 casks, you will find the difference between each and every cask. So that means I have close to 20,000 whiskeys. Yeah, every whiskey will have its own unique regional characteristics. So this is very important. You have visited a lot of distilleries abroad, or in Scotland or wherever it is. If you imagine the way in which the whiskey has been made, imagine the surroundings, and once the liquid goes into the cask, it starts interacting with the outside world. It tends to absorb the smell and the substances from its surroundings. This is the beauty of the whiskey. So you can't compare whiskeys. People normally tend to compare whiskeys. As you said initially, not many people like peated whiskeys at all. They try whiskeys like Lafroy or Octomore. Then they say, it's not my cup of tea. But you have to try others. There are many whiskeys which is fantastic. This is one of the reasons we started making edited, which is with a hint of peat. Not many people like peated whiskeys. Edited is kind of an entry-level peated whiskey, for those who want to try peated whiskeys. So that's it. And I think it's a matter of time. Once you start liking, and you will never drink any other whiskeys. You always like peated whiskeys.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Michael, that once you get hooked onto, it's never going to, roll back in time and things like that. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm just going to go through quick. I'm not too sure as to how many people actually do have the sample of a 6028, but I'm going to pick the people that I know for sure have it. So I see you, Sudarshan. Yes, I see you. A lot of people, I see you. But we'll come to each one of you to take your views about it. I'm going to start with the guy, probably Krishna, who's been there throughout with us, supporting us. For those of you who don't know Krishna is a sitting judge at the Malt Maniacs. He is one of the most experienced person in terms of whiskey tasting. Krishna, I know that there was some back and forth on the tasting notes on this one, but tell us today, when you taste the sample and when you're experiencing this whiskey, and Krishna got the sample just this morning up to him, so it was a close call. But tell us, Krishna, as to how it is. What do you think about the whiskey?
Yeah, thank you, Hemant, and good evening, good morning, and all good days to everybody, all parts of the world. My two bottles are with Vishnu or with Hemant, I don't know. So, and this small bottle arrived in the morning, and the courier guy refused to deliver. I went to his place and collected. So that's the little story. And before that, these two are the 2018 Malt Maniacs Paul John entries. So I've been testing these two, and one of them is Kanya. So yeah, this as Michael said, I absolutely second and strongly in agreement with him that no two whiskies are same. Each whiskey has to be judged in its own capacity, in its own individuality. No whiskey is bad. Only some whiskeys are made better than the other, which is said by William Faulkner. So, okay. I have tasted this last time in last time when I was there in Paul John. I have tasted this as a blind sample, And this is the third time I'm tasting. And as Hemant has rightly said, this thing grows on you, and this really grows on you. And people need to give a lot of patience and time to taste and find the beauties of this whiskey. Now, as I take in any tasting, blind tasting or a general tasting, there are three parts. First is nose, and then another is palate, the second is palate, and then the finish. And today when I tasted this, like on the nose I got, the raw vegetables, organics, lot of organics, some like heather, and then the smoke and peat is absolutely subtle and it is hidden. It just doesn't come out like that. The first things you notice on this whiskey is the first thing is vegetable juices, raw juices, a lot of organics, and the peat and the smoke doesn't come out just like that. It really takes time. And especially the peat doesn't come out just like that. Even after a lot of swirling, the peat doesn't come out. What you get is smoke. The smoke also, you see what smoke. There are different kinds of smokes. The smoke I get is bonfire smoke. In a raw the dry palm leaves that are soaked in water or rainwater. There's it's actually a wet smoke. It's not a dry smoke.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this. And then the peat is very negligent. The peat actually you get in the empty bottle. After all, you have finished everything. On an empty glass, you get a lot of peat. Guys, you smell the empty glass reveals more than the glass which contains the liquor. And then I get barley sugars. I'm so glad that Michael has mentioned the barley sugars. Actually, I have written all my notes before I wrote barley sugars. And then there are a lot of sugar candies in it. Sugar candies and lozenges. Lozenges? Sugar candied lozenges.
Yep,
and then in the end, when you give a lot of close attention to it, you get a maza candy, mango maza candy.
Well, that's something that I've not got yet, but
in the end, you will surely get it. Sugar candies and maza candies. Now, when I taste it, and the taste takes you to a different level.
Well, that didn't look like tasting at all. Those who have been watching Krishna, he just dunked that entire glass down. Yeah, but I know what he's doing. He's getting a complete.
It's about 10 ml, not much.
Yeah. I know that.
It's 10 ml. The mouthfeel is so satisfying, so fantastic. It's creamy. It's it actually develops a lot on the palate. You got a lot of sugar syrups, and then the peat comes here. I get the peat on the palate. I never got my peat. Even after 2-3 tries, I didn't get palate on my nose. I got the peat on my palate, and the finish is so fantastic. Although it's not so long, it's highly satisfying. And I here towards the end, I get this green peppers. Capsicum.
There's a little bit of that, and
little bit of capsicum, and most importantly, it's a lot of warmth. It is very warm and sweet, and very pleasantly sweet bitter combination. It is a beautiful, fantastic whiskey, and actually it grows with you. You sit in an evening. I wish it is raining outside. Bloody thing, it is not raining here in Hyderabad. So it's a fantastic whiskey. You sit in a Goa or in Bangalore outside, like a Kurk, when it is raining outside, you have this bottle with a couple of your friends, and this bottle, this glass, you have it in hand and have this. This is absolutely stunning whiskey, and this is reminded me of the sample which you guys sent me in 2018 Malt Maniacs blind tasting. It reminded closely with Kanya, and Kanya is a very expensive whiskey, and this, guys, is a bang for your buck whiskey. This I call it a bang for your buck. And this comes at 5,000 rupees. It is an absolute steal. Actually, I want to buy 10 bottles. You guys are not giving. That's what I want to say. Let me complete that.
Thanks, Krishna. I think that I owe some people apology over here because the way that Krishna is describing it, I'm sure that a lot of people who don't have this whiskey must be wondering, saying that why the hell am I sitting on this call listening to this, especially when Krishna is enjoying himself thoroughly and dunking glass after glass. True apologies, guys. We had only X number of bottles. COVID hit us. Bottles have not been collected. Blah blah blah. But with our next releases, we hope that we're going to get most of you next time on a call like this. All of you, I'm hoping to have a bottle which you can enjoy at the same time. Now, I'm going to move to another person. Now, this person I'm going to pick selectively because this person has studied whiskey, all right? And I'm going to put Yash. People normally say that don't put people on the spot. I'm going to put Yash on the spot now. He is from Paul John. Now, and like Michael, sometime diplomatics, you shouldn't compare whiskeys and all that. Yash being the youngster in the group, I'm sure that he'll take it in the light-hearted spirit that I intended to be. But Yash, I want you to tell us about this whiskey. What's your kind of experience with this whiskey, and what do you feel about it? Go for it.
I must say, I always say this to everyone whenever I'm explaining Paul John whiskies, that Michael is our artist. And my work as a brand ambassador is to explain what his art is about. And this is another wonderful whiskey from his end. And it takes me back to our Select Cask Peated. I mean, it's similar elegance with a subtlety of peatiness. And this whiskey is similar to that. And the underground cellar plays a very important role in my personal opinion. So I guess this whiskey is worth the money. Even I've picked up enough bottles.
I know, yes. I've been closely looking at who picks up the bottles and who doesn't. So don't worry, I have that very closely in track. But Yash handled that very, very diplomatically. Yash, in sometimes when the call is not getting recorded, I'm going to put you on the spot again and let's say to get the true views about it. But I'm going to move to another person. Puneet, do you have the bottle of 6028 with you? Are you drinking that whiskey? Puneet, Himanshu, if you can look for Puneet on the quagmire of people and tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm actually enjoying. I have the bottle with me. Thanks, Hemant.
Okay.
So, I enjoy my malt, I enjoy my dram, and I'm enjoying it today. I think most of the notes, whether the creamy flavor or the wet mud coming through very, very clearly. I'm yet to get the candies, I'll wait for that.
Look for them.
But, yes, but I was lucky to get my bottle in the raffle. I missed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the raffle we held as you know, because some people because of COVID were not able to pick up their bottles, especially from outside India. So we put a raffle for these people, and Puneet, one of the lucky winners. So enjoy your whiskey, Puneet. I'm going to move to
one comment before you move on.
Yep.
I echo the feedback that you got on the packaging. Simply brilliant. You know, it's really top class, and congrats to you on that.
Thank you, Himanshu. Another feather for you. Thank you again to make that happen. Now, I'm going to move to another gentleman who's been a big fan, big supporter of our club, and his messaging starts from the time that this thing is conceptualized. It doesn't start from the time I start putting out the teasers. No, it doesn't start from there. His messaging to me starts from the time saying that already you guys are doing something, I know about it. I want 10 bottles. That's where he starts from. All right. And we kind of negotiated with him saying that everyone needs an opportunity. But Satyakam, I'm going to put you on. Tell us about this whiskey and don't tell people as to how many bottles that you've got. Satyakam, you're on mute. You need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. Hey. So no, I'm not going to say how many bottles I got. That will be a secret.
Only 10.
Ask me
nothing of that sort. Yeah.
But what I can say is that I've gone through one bottle already. So this is empty, and I can see the I don't know if you guys can see the Mario painting. So yeah, I mean, I put up my notes on SMAC group the day I got the bottle, which was shortly after it was launched, and I got the same notes as what Mikey was saying. I didn't get the candy either, but it's a campfire smoke chasing honey, and there's a lot of woodiness, right? So there's campfire smoke, there is wild honey. You feel that you are in woods when you're having this whiskey. It's that kind of a feeling, and it's a flavor burst. It's dry and your mouth waters. So that's another thing that I really liked about it, is that when you're nosing it, your palate is already ready to take it in. Yeah, I mean, it is beautiful, and I'm glad I got all the bottles that I did.
No more of that, Satyakam. Thank you so much for notes, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to move to another gentleman who has been, again, big fan of us. He always posts detailed notes about what he thinks about our whiskeys. He was with us at Paul John Distillery when we launched this whiskey. Tuhin, you have been a part of multiple clubs, and you have seen different whiskeys again. I'm not going to ask you to compare. I'm not going to make you uncomfortable that way. But I'm just going to take your quick thoughts about what do you think the whiskey is like, and especially for the weather in Bangalore today, do you think that it is bang for your buck whiskey?
I think the weather is really amazing in Bangalore. It rained a while ago. And thank you so much, first of all, SMAC. Thank you so much, Hemant. And hi, Michael. And hi, Himanshu and Yash. Okay, so Paul John whiskies, it takes time to open up. If you keep it for a while, the character changes. And I always say that whenever I nose Paul John whiskey, I'm in a masala market. Like there are so many characters in this, so many things. But I've just written down. This is the first time I've written out so many things when I'm nosing. It's quite earthy, of course. Just like after rains and all. It is a bit citrus at the same time, as I mentioned before. There's sea salt, and I got a bit of jackfruit also in between. Quite creamy. There are cloves. Like once you finish it and you nose it, there are a lot of cloves. And there is cashew fruit. I got. There is cashew, but cashew fruit because it is being citrusy, and as everybody said, it's woody and there is some fire, bonfire. So yeah, I feel that. And on palate, it's quite creamy and spicy initially, but later on it's cream and it's very, very smooth. And I would say finish is peat. In the finish, you get a peat.
Yeah, agree.
So it's a beautiful dram where you can go on a treasure hunt and find different things all the time. So I've been nosing this like मैंने 2 pour किए हैं, and I've been nosing that things change in Paul John, and that's what I like. The beauty of Paul John is you cannot say it's like that whiskey. It's separate. In Scotch, you can say, oh, it tastes like that, it tastes like that. But in Paul John, it tastes like Paul John because it's only Paul John.
Thanks, Tuhin. I think so. They're very kind words. And again, Michael, something that all of us are appreciating your creation. So thank you so much for making this wonderful whiskey being available. I'm going to move to just a couple of more people. As you can see, though, no matter how hard I tried, just with a few views, we are already 3 minutes away from our scheduled end time. So we're not going to end there. Don't worry about it. We're going to keep this going for some time at least. But I'm going to move to a couple of more people to get their views, because this tasting session is all about that, guys. You need to enjoy this whiskey. You need to sip this whiskey. This is not a whiskey to be kept on the shelf. Trust me on this one. I have a lot of whiskeys on my shelf. I think considerable amount of whiskeys I have on my shelf. And I can tell you saying that this is not a whiskey that you want to keep on your shelf. This is one thing that you need to have on your glass. This is something that you need to drink, experience, and then appreciate it. This is that kind of whiskey. So if you're saving it for an occasion, yes, occasions will come. but make sure that you crack that bottle open and put it into your glass. Saying that, Sharad, I'm going to move to you. I know that you have somehow managed to secure yourself the bottle and have something with you. Quickly tell us, what do you think about this whiskey? And I think that you managed to send a sample to your brother as well, who's joined us on this call. Thank you so much for doing that. I think so that's a wonderful gesture to share that whiskey and to make it available for everyone. But tell us about the whiskey.
Yeah, sure, Hemant. So like I told you the other day, what's good whiskey if you don't share it? So I tried the raffle again the second time, and so did my brother. He's on this call, as you said. And I thought might as well share the sample with him. And so I uncorked the bottle that day itself. Basically, yeah. So basically what I felt initially was that since it's a peated single cask, that's what we're calling it, right? So when I just opened it and I nosed it, so I didn't get any peat on the nose. That's what I mentioned in the chat as well. So I was not getting any smoke or peat on the nose. All I got was plenty of citrus, lemon zest, orange peel. That's what I got, and sort of something sweet. And then when I just poured a little bit, a very little bit, once I poured the sample, I poured a little bit for myself as well. So, and then that's when the peat hit me when I took the first sip on the palate. So it's got, I get this thing with Paul John quite a bit. I get the coconut. When we visited the distillery also, I asked Pankaj, do you have something to do, does it have something to do with, Goa, the Goan character, because you have palm trees, coconut trees all around. So there was something, I got that coconut oily kind of finish on the palate.
Bounty chocolate.
Yeah, that was at the end. And I'm an absolute amateur, as you say. So I get this bitter, dark chocolate towards the end, and sort of longish finish on the towards the end. That's what I felt. It gives you a sense of warmth, like how it's raining cats and dogs here in Hyderabad as well. And I'm probably sweating, so it's probably the humidity and a little bit of the two glasses which I'm
getting into you. Yeah.
So basically, it's a wonderful job. I think we should all thank Michael for what he's creating, and big fans of Paul John always. And each whiskey is different, like how Tuni Hanshu he said, Paul John is Paul John. It's not not comparable to anything else. Each whiskey, whether it is the bold or the classic or the Christmas edition or this one is again different to what the other three are. And I feel that it's more citrusy, more orange. And I don't get the mango maza candy, but I do get an orange toffee, which we used to have, that 10 paise wala toffee, which we used to have in school. So I get a bit of that as well. So fantastic and great job, I think, Michael. That's amazing what you've created here.
Thanks, Sharad. I think so. Wonderful. I think so. It's all about that, right? When a whiskey brings some of those old memories, especially the 10 paisa orange chocolate candy that I think so. If we have done a fantastic job if it reminded you of some pleasant memories like that. I think so that's what the intent is. One last person before we move on to some of the new entries that Michael is going to take us through, something that's very exciting. We did taste these whiskeys when we were there in the distillery, and I'm very excited for this release because I consider some of those whiskeys really, really good. Now, whenever someone sends me some feedback about the whiskeys and the effort that we put in to get these bottles out for the people, and some of this feedback is absolutely genuine and great, but some people's feedback absolutely stands out because they say it from the heart. They actually capture the moment in the picture that they share with us, and they actually tell us so much about in that one experience. Jagdish, you shared with us a picture, and you that day messaged me late in the night saying that Hemant, I enjoyed this whiskey tremendously. So tell us about your experience with the whiskey, and quickly tell us if this whiskey was something that you missed.
I had only one word that I told you, Hemant. It was only wow. And this whiskey grows on you. The more you drink, you never get enough of it. It's brilliant, smooth, not like the peated whiskeys that I've had before. It just went brilliantly well. It was raining that day, and this whiskey, was like gives you the nice warmth that you wanted, per se. brilliant whiskey. Kudos to Michael and Paul John. I've always been a fan of Paul John, but this whiskey takes the cake.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jagdish. So, Michael, in the interest of time that we never are able to keep, we will go back to you and take us through and tell us about what we can expect in the future and the new drams that I have been eyeing ever since I have seen you on video, the secretive drams. And every time that Himanshu talks to me, I said that, Himanshu, you have promised me something. Where is that stuff? So we'll start off on that. Michael, over to you. Back to you. Tell us about the whiskeys that we're going to taste now. Give us a little bit of background about how it's made, and then we'll. I know a few of us on the call have got the samples, but I want to describe as much as in detail about these new releases from Paul John. I think so. Some wonderful jobs done there. Over to you, Michael.
Well, we make only two types of whiskey, that is peated and unpeated. Initially, when we started, as you know, we started using only ex-bourbon casks because I thought, for the Indian climatic conditions, ex-bourbon cask would be the safer option because India is hot and humid. If it is version of, for example, the one bourbon industry used. In India, I thought it would be too woodier. So I started with ex-bourbon casks. Over a period of time, we started realizing that Paul John can withstand, higher amount of aging, as in the whiskey can go on beyond 10 years. So then I started thinking about using alternative casks. Initially it was virgin oak, then it was Spanish wine casks. Then recently I started using Portuguese wine casks. These casks are, except the virgin oak, the wine casks are used as finishes. Couple of years ago, we had released a single cask of Olorosso, just as a trial. This time, we have launched Olorosso as well as PX. Okay, yeah, these are the two expressions.
Fantastic.
Krishna is so happy.
I'm so happy.
There are more than a few people who are happy seeing those bottles, but then we'll come to the discussion a little later, Michael, because there are a lot of people on this call who are actually wincing, saying that I don't know about them, or I can't, and I have not tasted them.
Okay, today I'm going to talk about these two expressions, Olorosso and PX. These are Spanish wine cask finished whiskies.
Fantastic.
They both are 7 years old. Initial 5 years, it was measured in ex-bourbon cask, first fill, and the next 24 months, it was filled in Olorosso hogshead and PX butt as a finish, and both are bottled at 48%, and these are non-chill filtered again. Most of the Scotch whiskies you see, it says sherry finish, but here you see two different wine finishes, because as you know, the sherry can be produced only in the region of Jerez, and anything comes from the region of Jerez is known as sherry. If it is made outside Jerez, it is not sherry. Since our casks are not from Jerez, and the casks are seasoned in the region of Montilla, we cannot classify this whiskey as sherry finish.
Sherry.
Yeah. Instead, we have bottled this as Olorosso and PX finish whiskies.
Fine enough. Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, I mean, when I say 7 years, you can see, look at the color.
Wow.
You can see the color comparison here. Yeah. This is a 5-year-old whiskey, and this is just 7. To get this intense extraction of color, you have to measure at least for 40 years in Scotland.
Yeah. Is it peated?
Now, this is not peated. It's unpeated.
Okay.
So you can imagine the amount of extraction we get in India. So this is, yeah, partially maybe because I've used historical cask, as in these casks were in different bodegas for almost 60 odd years. Yeah. So when it comes to most of the Scotch whiskies, they have a different way of seasoning, as in they buy the Americano cask from the US, they ship it to Spain, they give it to different bodegas there, season the wine for a few months, at the most 2 years. So what happens here is you don't get the intense color, you tend to get more flavors. But since these casks are very, very old, the wood had a lot of wine soaked in. This is one of the reasons I got more extraction. First of the extraction is PX.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is where again I do that activity for you, Himanshu, and on representing Paul John, saying that apologies to all the people who don't have the sample, but Paul John and SMAC together is working extremely hard to ensure that all of you have this dram as soon as possible. But for those of you who do, I think so we'll go to all of them and collect their feedback, and we'll hear some notes about it. And I'm seeing those comments coming through from Darshana, from Sona, and all of you people from Fabulas saying that I'm really sorry, guys. I know that how it feels sitting on a call like that. Absolutely hearing the and looking at the color of that whiskey, you absolutely think saying that, oh my God, that must be a fantastic whiskey. That's I know that the impression that's going on. We are going to make it happen. We will ensure that next time around when we have this call, especially for the PX and Oloroso, we will have a call and we will ensure that hopefully most of you are going to be back again for such a session where you're going to have the samples. Back to you, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking about PX. I mean, out of all the Spanish wines, PX is the only wine which is not fermented. So normally, most of the PX has got higher amount of sugar. This is one of the reasons PX finished whiskeys always tend to be slightly sweeter on the palate. Here on the note, if you see a lot of dry fruit notes, yeah, sorry, what is that?
That's the sample, Michael.
Okay.
Michael hasn't seen the sample yet. Michael, we sent across test tubes.
Okay, got it. On the nose, typical PX, a lot of dry fruity notes. You have dry dates, dry resins, dry figs. Again, you have dark chocolate.
I think that this whiskey is like whenever you nose it, it's one of those whiskeys that you're going to enjoy nosing. I mean, it's quite a contrast to what we just tasted in 6028. It's not one of those whiskeys that's shy on expressing itself on the nose. It's out there. It's actually got a lot of warehouse in it. It's got a lot of wine warehouse, especially if you know what I mean. The combination of wood, dampness, and that wine's notes around it is exactly like that for me.
Yeah, deliberately I have made it slightly woodier. This is because, you know, if you look at the color, it looks as a 40-year-old whiskey. When I say it is just a 7-year-old, people think it is too young. You know, when they taste, when they get that, the woodier notes, you know, psychologically they think the whiskey is very old. So just to correlate the color and the palate, I have made it slightly woodier. Again, you know, when I say 7-year-old, it's equivalent to 35-year-old Scotch whiskey in terms of flavor extractions. So the amount of flavor extraction we get is 4 times higher.
Correct.
I'm not comparing the age. I'm talking about the extraction level.
The technical part of it.
Yeah, just the extraction.
Yeah.
I think, Michael, one of the other key points that I'd like to point out to everyone who's on this call is this whiskey is more viscous. It absolutely forms a brilliant coat on that tongue. It creates that richness that normally you associate with a sherry whiskey. Wonderful coating on the tongue, makes you absolutely smack your lips and say that, you know, the feeling of, you know, pulling the next sip through is one of those whiskeys, guys.
Yeah, I mean, few drops of water will really open up the whiskey. It makes the whiskey more sweeter again. It makes more creamier. It again, you have the typical Paul John character coming back. That is more of a honey and maltiness.
So let's quickly go to the people who have the sample, Michael, if you don't mind. I just want to take some quick opinions because already we are on borrowed time. So let's quickly go to, I think this time we're going to start with Satyakam. Satyakam, you have tasted this whiskey. So tell us, this is the second time that you're tasting this whiskey, but tell us about this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So the second time is actually nicer than the ones I had in Goa. It's absolute dry fruits, and the dry fruits are soaked. So there's so the Christmas editions that Paul John has, it's reminiscent of that, but in a nicer way. It's stronger in the flavor. In the PX, I'm getting a lot of Christmas cake, a lot of damp soaked in brandy dry fruits, right? And when you take it in, as Michael said, right, the typical Paul John character of the 6-year barley, it explodes in the back of your mouth. So that's what I get. Very nice, very nice.
Thanks, Satyakam. I'm going to quickly move to another gentleman who's very camera shy, but Harsha, do we have this a friend of ours on who's going to give us these notes since you're sharing this sample with him, and we can all wish him a very happy birthday as well, because Avinash is his birthday and he's celebrating his birthday, and what better occasion to actually have these wonderful drams. Avinash, thank you so much for joining us, and Himanshu, can you put Harsha on unmute? I think so. Harsha is still on mute. So Avinash is sharing the screen with Harsha. Avinash,
Hey guys,
many happy returns.
Thanks a lot. It's fantastic dram. So as I was starting, I think 2-3 that I think were predominant for me were the grape is definitely coming out. I could smell a little bit of sulfur. And there was either a dark chocolate or a cake happening. I couldn't decide which. Either a chocolate cake or dark chocolate. So it smells very full-bodied, and it's really enticing to, it makes you want to have a sip. So I haven't had a sip. I found it to be short finish. I just tasted it. So short finish. A bouquet of flavors that really hit you. the sulfur, of course, doesn't come out in the tasting, at least as far as I was concerned. I've only had 2 sips, so uh, maybe it'll come out a little later. The grape and the Jimenez cask, I think, has really nailed it, and it's tying all the flavors together, at least for me. All in all, fantastic dram. Really look forward to drinking more of this. Thanks so much for the opportunity, guys.
Thanks, Avinash. And yeah, again, I guess it's one of those drams that is always going to make you, vie for more. And we're going to try for a lot more, Himanshu, than what you have sent us right now in terms of those test tube samples. So
much more.
Yeah, there you go. Much more is the ask, and that's going to come in. I'm going to quickly move to Jagdish before I head back to Michael to let's taste the Olorosso, which is one of my favorites from the Paul John's tables. Michael didn't send me a sample the last time that he did the single cask, but I did manage a bottle somewhere across the world. But then I know Michael has got more than a few million people following him and saying that I need a sample and I need a bottle. But Jagdish, you've got a sample as well. Tell us, what do you feel about the PX?
PX, in my opinion, is brilliant. Lovely, slight hint of, I mean, like Michael rightly said, you're getting a lot of honey in the nose. Brilliant. I'm comparing this to the 6028. Similarly, the color, like you rightly said, is completely different.
Wonderful. That's a visual comparison for those people who are looking at Jagdish's screen. I think so. That's a wonderful comparison that he has in front of him.
Right here. So it's a 5 years and a 7 year, if you may. But absolutely brilliant. And I think so. I need to talk to Hemant about getting much more bottles than what.
I'm just creating that aura of putting pressure on Himanshu. That's all I'm doing, guys. I'm not going to do anything else over there. But yeah, Jagdish, thank you so much. Michael, back to you. Let's go for the Olorosso and tell us your views and give us a little more detail on the Olorosso.
Before that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I mean, with respect to the previous 2 expressions. Otherwise, I will move on.
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah, I think so. Q&A, we're going to store to the end. That's where I want people to stay back and ask all these questions. That's where I was holding on to Michael. But
Okay,
if you want
enough.
to question, yeah, okay.
Fair
Tuhin, we'll come back to you. I have you a note. Don't worry about that.
Fair enough. Okay, the next one is Olorosso. The first, the first expression was PX. That was finished in PX butts, that is 500 liters. Olorosso is from the hogsheads, 250 liters. It's a different type. Let me open this. Olorosso.
So look at the luxury, guys. I mean, look at Michael opening bottle after bottle in front of all of us, and we are just living by test tubes. Sorry, Michael, I had to pull that one.
Yeah. Okay.
And now I need to add, while Michael is opening that, everyone may think that it's a great job, but one thing that people may need to remind themselves is it's an unforgiving job, and it's really, really difficult to do, guys. I mean, no matter what anyone says, that it's a wonderful job to have. Tasting whiskey as a job and having to do that day in and day out is not easy, and getting it right every single time consistently is, a phenomenal work. Sorry, Michael, back to you.
Okay, compared to PX, Olorosso is more bolder, more spicier. It is multidimensional for me. Again, on the nose, typical Olorosso flavors. Lot of spice. You have it is citrusy. You have blood orange. You have peach, apricot, dry resins coming through. You have Manuka honey. On the palate, it has coffee mocha and dark chocolate. Again, it is sweet, it is creamy, lot of dark chocolate and coffee mocha. It has got nutmeg because it is spicy.
I think those of you who like their whiskeys a little bit sweeter, a little bit thicker, a little bit, where we get a little bit of spice and there's a little bit of bitterness in this. I mean, you don't need to look anywhere beyond this whiskey, guys. I mean, this is a whiskey that's, I think so, one of those dimensional changes for the Indian market. You call those whiskeys. When I say dimensional changes, I really mean that, because I consider a whiskey that's going to actually change the dimension of what the entire audience has been tasting all through till now, have the chance to expose themselves to that kind of whiskey. Now, Nirvana was one of them in terms of its price and making them a single malt available to a lot of people. That's a dimensional change whiskey. And these two whiskeys are again a dimensional change whiskeys, because they are presenting to people in India some of these wonderful whiskeys that have been available worldwide. And they have the complexity and they have the finish, which is not short of any other whiskey that I've actually tasted in terms of sherry bombs. So I'm going to quickly move to another gentleman that has got the luck to have the samples. David Das, tell us about what do you think about the Oloroso. I know that the samples must have come to you as a surprise, but tell us about your experience with the Oloroso. David, are you there? Can you hear us? You're on mute, David. You need to unmute yourself. Himanshu, if you can help David unmute.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Hemant, and thanks, Harsha, for this. I think I was fortunate enough to go and I had this call from Harsha, and I didn't waste any time. I just took my car and off I went in the COVID time to go and grab my piece from Vishnu. And what I did was I set up a special evening yesterday all by myself, put myself in the bar, and I got on to both these samples. As far as the Oloroso is concerned, it did give me, it on the nose, it started off very citrusy. So I thought, it felt as if the journey was still citrusy till I actually came on a bit of these dry fruits. It hit me with some dry fruits, and then I thought when I went on the palate, there was something that is not very sweet. I could pick out whether that was sweet or chocolate, but it did not have sweetness in it. So for me, it hit a little bit on the wine notes. I don't know whether wine note came, but the finish was. It appeared to me it stayed on the palate for some time, where the notes of wine were actually coming on pretty smooth. So I thought the drink has a long finish, but the fact remains that it gives you a taste of something that if people are interested in a little bit of cream and a sweet finish, I think you tend to end up on getting the right notes there. For people who like thick stuff and a little bit on the creamier side, this one is a good fit for them, and I thought this will really find great takers in the market today, because I have not seen much of these creamier finishes which have hints of I couldn't get the chocolate, Michael, but I thought there was something that was sweet, but I now realize that was chocolate that was not sweet. But all in all, I think it's going to be a good hit in the market.
Thanks, David. Fantastic views again over there. Michael, back to you.
Yep, these were the three expressions, Hemant. Yeah, if you would like to know anything specific, I'm more than happy to
Right. This is the time that we're going to go for Q&A, guys. This is the time that you're going to ask anything that you wish. We're already 27 minutes over time, so adding another 30 minutes wouldn't really matter for those of you who want to stay on. We're not going to cut you off in the middle of the call. But yes, I think so. We'll go with Tuhin, who had a question already lined up for Michael. Tuhin, off you go. Your question, please.
Hey guys, I know there's a lot of time on MSA group. I'm on mute. I'm kept on mute because I have a lot of questions. But yeah, for PX, I wanted to ask. The finish is of black cardamom. So the spiciness is it because of the age? Because you're getting a sherry and the wine casks, and aging in that. So it's quite spicy, and in the finish I'm getting a black cardamom. So is it because of the age or something else?
Okay, let me explain you this. If you Olorosso is matured or finished in ex Olorosso hogshead. Hogshead is comparatively smaller than the butt, which is 500 liters. So the wood to liquid ratio is much higher because when it comes to PX, it is more elegant because the liquid is more and the wood is less. When it comes to hogshead, it is different. So as the whiskey matures in India, the alcohol drops down. It is not like any other the dry area. For example, in Bangalore, as the whiskey matures, the ABV increases. Initially, when you fill the cask, it is at 63%. But at the end of 5th year, it reaches to 70%. When it comes to Goa, the alcohol drops down, and both we lose water as well as alcohol towards the agent share. So it becomes the flavor becomes more too concentrated. So the spiciness basically you're getting from the Olorosso and the cask. I'm not sure the cardamom, but definitely there are spices such as nutmeg. You have cassis.
Those cloves, whenever.
Yeah, baking spices.
Yeah, the elegant dry spices you have. This is from the cask. See, I wouldn't say, since this is just a finished whiskey. I mean, every cask is different. Yeah. So since Olorosso and PX finish, these whiskeys are limited releases. There would be slight change in different batches.
Right.
So coming back to your question, the spiciness that you get is from the cask. It is not from the whiskey.
But these are beautiful whiskeys. Thank you so much, Michael.
All right. Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Tuhin, for the question. If anyone has a question, let's go into the chat or just put up your hand. I see David Das' hands already going up. David, your mic is already on unmute. Go for it.
So Michael, I just want to ask you something that is actually quite mystifying, Michael. Generally, when one tastes, one is a fan of peat. As soon as the many peats are available in the island, as soon as you nose and palate, it hits you because that strong smoky flavor hits you. What is so special? How is that you created 6028, where you start very fruity and then I got taste of leather, and then the taste actually flow through till the peat actually tells you, hey, there is peat at the end of the tunnel. So I was quite surprised because the nose and the palate did take some time to actually build up. So is there any process that I was when I tasted that, I doubted it may not be peat. Very much an amateur question, but the fact remains that the taste acquired, I had to wait till the very end to actually get that peat actually building up on you. And the aftertaste that you have is actually of peat. I think that is the greatest style in which you have created that whiskey. So is there something very different from what traditionally people do in the Isla region to what you actually created for us, 6028?
Okay, it's a difficult question, actually. I mean, see, this is a single cask. Okay. If you're comparing 6028 to any of the Scottish whiskies or Isla malts, Isla malts has its own style.
Yeah.
And when it comes to process, the peat is part of the process from the beginning. Means, the grain is malted. So for the malting, you have to steep the grain in water. So if you go to Isla, you see the water they use, or the stream water, it contains the phenol flavors.
Yeah.
It's partly phenolic. The same water is used to soak the grain for the germination. Once the germination is over, then they use the peat which is freshly harvested. When you harvest the peat, that particular moment, it will have the highest amount of phenols.
Yeah.
As peat dries, the content of phenols will drop down. So since they use the peat as it is harvested, they get the intense, sharp phenolic content. When it comes to us, once the peat is harvested, to reach the distillery, it takes three months. So most of the intense phenols are lost.
Okay.
Okay. The second thing is, once the distillation, once it is distilled, it goes inside the cask. You have to remember that in Scotland, it takes many years in order to whiskey to extract maximum amount of barrel compounds or the flavor compounds. Yeah. You're talking about 12 years old Lefroy, for example. You have to compare 12 years old Lefroy with 1 year of malted whiskey here in India. But we are talking about 5-year-old whiskey, which is equivalent to 20-year-old Scotch in terms of flavor extractions. So what you have in this is peat, and also you have the barrel compounds. So on the nose, you're not getting much of a peat because the woodier note is masking the peat.
Yeah.
You understand?
Absolutely.
So that's why you're not getting the peat on the nose, but you're getting on the palate.
Yeah.
So most of the intense, the phenols you get in Scotch whiskies when it is young, when it is 10, 12, 15 years. Hope you're understanding.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Got it. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks so much, Michael and David. I saw Pushpendra putting his hands up for a question. So Pushpendra, again, wonderful to have you on, and please do ask your question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Michael, congratulations for what you are doing. I've actually been following you very recently, and I've been a tea planter, and I had made teas for 35 years. I'm a tea taster by profession and a boss. I used to do that in Darjeeling, and so whiskeys I've been drinking for the last 40 years, in Scotch, and 15 years I've been on single malts now, and I didn't know much about this club. I told Hemant, and I'm so glad that I'm here. I have one question about peat to you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you made any experiments in India besides the peat you get from Scotland or wherever you're getting from Scotland. So is there an alternative, or have you tried any experiments? We used to do a lot of them there. So that was one question. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah.
So the question is predominantly, Michael,
Okay,
around
I mean,
the
I thought he
availability of
has
peat.
another
Okay.
question as well.
No, no.
Okay.
No,
Okay, if you're talking about peating, we don't have any alternative because peat is available only in Scotland and maybe some of the Scandinavian nations. But if you're talking about smoking, we have tried a couple of, we have done a couple of trials, of course. But, you know, every ingredient or every material would give you different flavors. So we have used a couple of other alternatives, such as oak wood itself, and also cow dung. Just as a trial, I mean, you know, I saw some, you know, a couple of guys' eyes lighting up. This is just to understand, yeah, what happens. But nothing came closer to the peat, unfortunately.
I'm told cannabis was tried for smoke, or mesquite wood was tried somewhere. But another thing is that we have peat, you know, we have wasteland peats in India, but they've not been actually identified very well. You know, you have peat in Kerala, in South Sikkim, North Sikkim, and some parts of other parts of India too. I remember reading it someday. But I don't know if they can be excavated at the moment or not. But there is. But wood may be good use for. What about cannabis? Smoky. No, you can get that smoke.
No,
From
we haven't tried. We haven't tried.
Grass, basically grass. You know?
I can see a lot of people smiling already, and a lot of requests on the chat saying that cannabis is a wonderful experiment, Michael. That's the feedback that if you look at the chat, that's the feedback that you can see across, saying that that might be a great experiment to have. But Pushpendra, I'll probably add a little bit more onto that. I think that when you talk about peat extraction, right, I think that extraction of peat is not probably as easy as it sounds. It needs to be commercially viable for you to do something like that. That's, I think, so the predominant reason as to why it's not been very successful. There have been bogs of peat that have been identified in Canada. There have been bogs of peat in Indonesia, a lot of the
I'm talking
Sumatran
about
islands.
India.
India as well. I was just coming to that. So India as well has identified some peats, and there are different types of peats, as you can imagine, in terms of availability. Now, as you know how peat is made in terms of years and years that goes, any organic material that is going to get compressed will create peat for you. But the peat that's going to be able to actually help in terms of getting the smoky and peaty flavors and whiskey to make it commercially extractable in terms of availability for distilleries to use, I think so that's a question always that's going to have this one. There's been a lot of quest, I mean, for peat. If you do a quick Google search about quest for peat, it'll give you a great perspective of different places where people have been researching about peat, and how they're trying to make it available commercially, where the distilleries are actually being set up to make these two demands meet and get an alternative to Scottish peat. But yes, that's, I think so, big subject in altogether.
Yeah, it was the out of box thinking, and since we are importing it all the way, I know it's always good to think about doing something, local for,
Absolutely, completely agree. And I think that your idea of a cannabis infused Paul John whiskey is already being noted in terms of this one. So don't worry about that. I don't think so anything. Anyone
And
else,
Goa
folks?
is a nice place to do cannabis stuff things.
I think they've done it somewhere. So I read it, Michael must be knowing it.
Yeah, if he's knowing it, he's not going to say on a recorded call. I suppose that's Michael's fear. I suppose, but knowing Michael, he would anyway take this one. But anyone else, guys? Any questions? Thanks, Pushpendra. Anyone
I think
else? Any questions?
David has something. He's raised his hand.
No.
Or no? Okay.
Anyone else, folks? Since we have limited screens in which we can see, so Satyakam has got a question. Yeah.
Yeah, so last time there was discussion about the next of the zodiac. When are we going to say the next of the zodiac, and which sign is it likely to be?
Himanshu.
Sorry, what? I didn't get that.
He's asking about the zodiacs. He's looking at the stars. Satyakam he's asking when is the next zodiac going to be visible in the sky?
I would say not this year.
Okay.
We would be looking at next year. And again, I think it will be, I mean, as I see the lineup, Michael has shared about Olorosso and PX. Then we will have the Christmas edition 2020, and I would like to share that this year we will have the Christmas edition in Karnataka as well, because last year we had to, whenever and whoever was making the trips to Goa were carrying bottles of Christmas edition orders back. So we decided that we'll not repeat that ordeal anymore, and we'll bring Christmas edition to Karnataka this year. The total volume of Christmas edition of 2019 to 2020 is actually 80% lower than what we did in 2019.
Oh God, why?
We have just rationed it out, considering the times that we have around. We estimate that we would be happy with just this volume, and we were spreading out to newer markets as well, internationally, and from Goa to Maharashtra, because we realized that if travel gets restricted, then we have to ship it to more markets. So we were just reducing the amount per market, but going to more markets, and that's what we are doing. I have some, I would say, forecast that we are looking at perhaps the new zodiac early next year, if all goes well.
He had a sequel question, Himanshu, as to what the stars are going to look like.
Well, somebody mentioned in the chat, what about Tula? Well, all I can say is that it's not Tula.
Gemini.
That's for you to guess, Sudarshan. That I think so. Himanshu is again being his diplomatic self. Guys, going back, thank you so much, Himanshu, for responding for that question. Any other question, folks? I think that we are pretty much on time. If there are any questions, it will be great to hear from you. If not, I think so. It's been a wonderful question. Himanshu's got his hand up again. Yeah.
One last question. Is Kanya still available in some places in Bangalore, Himanshu? Do you know? I mean, tonic and so on. Do you know if they're still there?
I think if you get in touch with me, we will try to get. I saw the last bottle of Kanya go at Lakav just last week. Because we organized it for an MSA member, but I'll try to, just reach out to me. I'll try to see where there is a bottle available.
I'll do that.
Surely.
I'll do that. I'm trying to get one. Thank you.
Yes, please. Okay.
Michael,
last
I have another question. Can I?
Yeah. Please, Pushpendra.
If there's no one else, let anyone else. If there's a question, I can.
I'm just going to scan my eyes through, but go for it, Pushpendra. As you have the opportunity, please.
Okay. Michael, I have a question. Michael and Himanshu, I have a question that I want to know that when you mature, we know that your maturation takes place much, much faster, and it's a beautiful thing. And we are lucky. I mean, you are lucky, and we are lucky to have such good whiskey so fast in the system. And but when do you sell your whiskies in India mature differently, and when you send them abroad differently? Because when you are sending them abroad and when you're winning all those awards, would they kind of compare with the maturation, or you got to put those labels there, how many years and whatever?
Can I take that?
Yeah, sure, please go ahead.
A delight before Himanshu says that. That's a question that you've been looking forward, right, Himanshu? I mean, the marketing guy's delight saying that, come on, this is the what I've been on this session for so long.
Pushpender ji, our philosophy has been one world, one bottle, one liquid. So there are no changes in the liquid. What we put in India, what we put overseas. And let me tell you, we have just started our shipments to the defense forces. It's all the same.
So,
another thing
then
is
we are under the NAS quality. We are
another thing is there is a wrong perception about when it comes to maturation. In India, maturation does not happen faster. It happens differently. There is a lot of difference between the amount of extraction that happens and the maturation. I mean the aging. Yeah, there is no correlation between the age and the extraction. Yeah, so in India it happens differently. So due to different climatic conditions, the aging takes place differently. So in India we tend to extract higher amount of flavors, higher amount of color. The extraction is much rapid. Age is different.
So, but then when your whiskeys are maturing faster, aren't they? Aren't you deciding by drinking, like you are the best man? So you decide, okay, this whiskey is ready. This whiskey is ready to be marketed. It can maybe 2 years, it can maybe 4 years.
First of all, there is no age criteria for whiskey.
No, there is nothing in India. Luckily,
age is just a number. Okay, for example, this is a single cask. You know, when it comes to single cask, I bottle single cask sometimes as soon as it is 3 years old. It does not mean always I bottle 3-year-old. Also, we bottle, 5, 6, 7-year-old whiskeys. What you need is balance flavors. Every cask is different. Once the liquid is inside, it keeps evolving every day. So for every cask, there is a peak. Once the whiskey reaches the peak, it has to be bottled.
I understand. And
beyond that, it just it does not mean that it improves. Yeah. So no, I mean again, no age criteria. For example, we have different expressions. For different expressions, we use whiskies from different age group. For example, Nirvana is just around 4 years old, the youngest whiskey that we have. And for something like Zodiac series, we use the oldest one, but no age statement at all.
I think so. One of the essential part of your question, Pushpendra, if I may, with your permission, Himanshu and Michael, it was that, do you have any specific age statements across? So like Himanshu answered, I guess the simple answer is no, Pushpendra. There is no Paul John edition that they have an age statement that sells outside that's not selling in India. There's nothing like that happening. So if there is a bottle that they're releasing the same kind of bottle that's in India and abroad as well. So there's no distinction that's happening over there, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does answer my question here in India, because we have we don't have any regulations of that kind. But then
Irrespective.
when
So
it is,
I don't think so.
Competing with outside, I mean, how do they kind of justify?
So I don't think so. There is a justification that they normally give, saying that why they don't put an age statement around that. I think so. Now in the whiskey world, at least to a large extent, it is known that India matures whiskey much faster. So there is an acknowledgement saying that even if a whiskey does not have an age statement label pasted on it, it might be far more complex than what a usual whiskey from Scotland is. I think so. That's the rationale, and they go by their brand, saying that yes, this is how I think that we would like to picture it, standard across the world, rather than having different expressions for different parts of the world. I think so. That's the philosophy.
So that's very good that that's been accepted all over the world. And I think congratulations to, you guys who've done a great job.
For another example, I want to give you when we started bottling different expressions, for example, Brilliance, the first batch, when I did the first batch, I had just 4-year-old whiskey. As today, I have whiskeys that are 10 years old. So I am also using some quantity of higher aged whiskeys in Brilliance. So because we are talking about expression, to maintain the same profile, I may have to use whiskeys from different age groups. That's it. Yeah.
So, Mr. Pushpendra, I'll just
Thank you.
add one more perspective.
Yes, thank you.
I'll just add some perspective here. In India, with the new FSSI rule, there is a law which says that a whiskey has to be aged for a minimum of 1 year. In a barrel. The Scotch Whisky Association stipulates a minimum of 3 years with a mash or a grain, a cereal mash or a grain, and starting from Nirvana onwards, which is between 3 to 4 years, we progressively move on with our expressions in terms of age. But just to give you an analogy from your industry, if you take a cup of hot water and a cup of cold water and dip 2 tea bags, the entire confusion in the extraction of the liquor that happens is at different rates and differently, as Michael said. So that what happened for a barrel in Goa to a barrel anywhere else in India and anywhere else in Scotland and anywhere else in the world as well. So it matures differently, and that's why no age statement works. Because let me tell you, one part which is not covered here is the angel share, which is at about 8%. So if we put a NA statement on a 12-year, there's hardly much available in place. So a 200-liter barrel will just give us some 50 liters of whiskey.
Yeah, it's an expensive,
and it may not taste well.
Exercise. Yeah, it will not. I got your point. Thank you for clearing all that. Thank you.
All right, guys. I think that I really need to draw the line on this one, because we are just 1 hour over the time limit here, and by standards, I guess we are pretty early. But thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this. And if there are any questions, we are always available to you anytime. We do have a Telegram group, and Paul John is available to you. Michael and Himanshu, yes, thank you so much for making this possible for us and giving us this time and this single cask bottle of making this happen in India and making the thrill go all around. It's been a wonderful evening. We'll call it a night, unless you have got anything else to share. Nothing else. So I think so. It's been a great evening. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for this. And Michael, thanks. Himanshu, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Himanshu.
Yes.
Great evening.
Jai Hind. Jai Ho.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you.